Hello, you. It's me. And I've been watching the different channels out there, seeing what Gypsy has been up to. But Aerolink was the only one that I could find who's talking about something specific. Aerolink brought something up that makes a lot of sense and makes me worry a little bit. What they were talking about was that, and we've talked about this here too, that the Life After Lockup Season 2, it's showing Ken kind of being nasty towards Gypsy, not treating her well, whether it's when they were at the restaurant and he embarrassed her, or when he was making some kind of smoothie or something and he kept interrupting her by turning it on. And what they brought up was that it's interesting because now we're not privy necessarily to the relationship between Ken and Gypsy. And the live that they did while they were watching their show, Ken seemed very attentive to Aurora, the baby, and Gypsy seemed to get a little jealous. Excuse me. I'm fighting off some kind of a sinus thing. Anyway, it's interesting because the show, which I guess the ratings are going down quite a bit, but it's interesting that in the show, Lifetime specifically kind of paints Ken out to be a dick, essentially. He's kind of a dick. And what Aerolink brought up is they couldn't help but wonder if this was like a plan that Gypsy was setting into motion, so that when she gets off of parole, which will be, just a couple months away, that she can obtain full custody of Aurora, the baby, showing that Ken is unstable and mean and, probably wouldn't be a good fit as a father figure, because look at the way he treats the mother. And I thought that was a really brilliant point. This is something that she always does. She did this with Nick Godejohn. She, they were besties and everything was great and she loved him and he loved her. And then she threw him under the bus. She did this with Ryan. They got together, got married while she was still in prison. And it's literally like a month or two after she got out, she was already ready for Ken and ready to leave Ryan. Just used him till she was done. And then what did she say about Ryan? Oh, he's a hoarder and he was really abusive and he was really horrible and blah, blah, blah. Now, I didn't watch anything. I just watched a few clips of the first season, so I really don't know. But there was never a time where Ryan seemed to treat her badly. But she claims he did, that he was abusive in one way or another. So, is she setting this whole thing up now so that Ken will look abusive, so that when she leaves him, she can take the baby and, he was abusive and I don't want him to harm my child? It certainly looks like she's setting it up, because Gypsy, if anything, goes for the long haul. I mean, she worked on Nick for 2.5 years, 3 years, something like that. She worked for him for a long time. to get to the point where they got to, where they committed a crime. Ryan, she didn't have to work as hard. You know, she just accepted him and they got married. But yeah, the moment she was free, she was done with Ryan. And I just think that's so sad. I really do. So is she setting up Ken? Is she doing the same thing with him? She's setting him up with the help of Lifetime to make him look unstable, to make him look like he would be a bad parent, when she's the one who doesn't know how to parent the child. You see that live, and it's obvious Ken is the one who takes care of that baby, not Gypsy. Gypsy has no clue, and I don't think Gypsy wants to. It's one thing to be pregnant and to have everybody fawn all over you, but once the baby is born, the baby is the focus. Sorry, I'm a little tired as well as fighting this sinus thing. That's my excuse, but I do apologize. Stumbling on my words a little. Anyway, yeah. Is that what Gypsy is doing? Because it sure looks like it. It makes sense. It really does. But what I was saying was Ken, yeah, he actually knows how to take care of a baby, and he looked like he was doing a good job. Gypsy, yeah, she's not getting the attention she thought she would as a mother. She didn't think ahead that when the baby is born, the baby is the one that's going to get all the attention. She will not. And that's weird for her, because if you look at clips, pictures of her and Dee Dee when Gypsy was a baby on up, she was always the center because she was always sick. Her claiming, oh, I was never sick. No. She was sick. They just didn't know what it was. And this is the biggest problem that I have with people who support Gypsy. I am a mother, and if I have a child, if I have a sweet little girl who was born with disabilities to begin with, and was not, what do they call it, failure to, I forget what it's called, failure to survive or something like that. Anyway, if I had a child who was very sick as a child, they didn't know why. So they kept running tests. They kept going to different doctors to run more tests. This is what Dee Dee was doing with Gypsy. Gypsy was a sick child. For her to say she was perfectly healthy, she's full of shit. That's not what happened. She was a sick child. The doctors obviously were telling Dee Dee a whole lot of different things. And I know even I have said in the past that Dee Dee did commit fraud by getting all these trips and all these things for Gypsy. But they didn't know until 2012, when Gypsy was then an adult. They didn't know till 2012 that she had the chromosome microdeletion thing. They didn't know till then. So up to that point, they didn't know what was wrong with her. They had different things they thought she had. Maybe they did think she had muscular dystrophy, because a lot of similarities between what she has, definitely the microdeletion, and muscular dystrophy. She does, she did have weakness. She was told that she had a seizure and her legs went numb for a while, although they came back and she didn't tell anybody. That's her story currently, that she didn't tell anybody that she could feel her legs. So her mother was carrying her around all over the place and pushing her in a wheelchair. How is that Dee Dee's fault? That's not Dee Dee's fault. Dee Dee was trying to figure out what was wrong with her child. And she was taking her to various doctors, not doctor shopping, but trying to find what was wrong with her daughter in order for her to become healthy. And it makes me so frustrated. Oh, Dee Dee went to all these doctors and she lied and did. I don't think she did. I think she told every doctor, this is what I've been told about my child. My daughter is ill. She's still ill. And they tested her for all these different things that she doesn't seem to have. And yet she still has all these symptoms. We don't know what's wrong with her. Can you find out? I think that's what she was going through. Now, I don't know. I have heard that she was also caught stealing. Dee Dee was. That could be or could not be true. At this point, it's hard to know what is and isn't true. But what we do know for certain is that Gypsy was a very sick child. Her mother did everything to take care of her. She needed the surgeries that she received for the eyes, the feeding tube, because Gypsy has proven herself that she doesn't always like to eat. And that was part of the failure to thrive, or well, I forget what it, if you remember what it is, put it down, because in other words, she wasn't surviving on her own very well, so they had to take precautionary measures like putting a feeding tube in her so that she would still get nutrients. That's what that's about. That's all real. That's all real. Those are all the symptoms of the microdeletion thing that she has. Those are what were happening, except they didn't know what to call it. Of course she would go to a lot of different doctors to try to figure out how to help your child. Doesn't that make sense? I would. If I had the ability, if my child was sick and they weren't sure what was wrong and they kept throwing out all these different things, but it didn't quite fit the way it should for these different things, so they still weren't sure, of course I'd be taking her to other doctors, other specialists, whoever I could, to figure out what's wrong with my child. So for Gypsy to turn around and say that her mother abused her is bullshit. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. I mean, could Dee Dee have been abusive to her? I mean, it's possible, but there doesn't seem to be any evidence to support that. Although in abuse cases, there isn't always. But it's not like Gypsy was running around with bruises all over her body. She was always very happy for the cameras. And realize Gypsy has been in front of a camera pretty much all her life. That's how she got all those trips. She'd smile for the camera when they were ready to board a train or go fly to go to Disneyland or Disney World or swim with dolphins or whatever. I mean, to me, I think that's a pretty good mom who would make sure that you had all those experiences. Because remember, according to Gypsy herself, I think, somebody said that it might have been raw, I don't know. Somebody said that Gypsy was thought to not live beyond the age of 18. That she would probably pass away before the age of 18. That's why, and Rod wasn't there. Neither was Christy. Neither of them were there. And I did find it very interesting, according to Becca Scoops, that Christy used to talk very highly of Dee Dee up until the point where she was offed And then suddenly she had Munchausen by proxy. For a child who was already very ill, who we found out later when the child was an adult, they had a microdeletion thing. All this blows my mind. All this is frustrating. But I do wonder if Gypsy, although not a very intelligent person, is good at manipulation. You know, as somebody who has in my belief, a psychopathy background. I don't know. Gypsy was sick when she was young. Dee Dee was not harming her. Dee Dee was trying to help her. Dee Dee made sure to take her on trips. And suddenly, after Dee Dee was gone, Dee Dee was a monster. That was the only way that they could save Gypsy's ass. And Christy suddenly lied about it. And said, oh yeah, Dee Dee was horrible. If I'd known she was that bad, that wouldn't have happened. Bull. They didn't care. They care now because they're getting money. They're getting all the money. That's all that matters, is money. Money and fame. Toddy One Skip said that, and I think that she was right. They just want that fame. At the expense of others, obviously. At the expense of the memory of Dee Dee. At the expense of Nick Godejohn and his family. And at the expense of anyone else that they might be hurting right now. Including poor little Aurora, the baby. But it does look like Gypsy is trying to set it up for the long haul, so that if her and Ken break up officially and put it out into the public, that she can make Ken look like a monster, you know, really abusive and horrible, so that she gets custody of little Aurora. And I hope to God that doesn't happen. Just her having a kid is disgusting. It's not the kid's fault. Aurora is a very sweet, innocent little baby, literally speaking. She's a baby. None of this is her fault. But it will make a difference who takes care of her. And Gypsy is already abusing her. We can see that on the lives. She doesn't know how to hold her. She's blowing in her face. The baby is completely stiff when Gypsy tries to hold her. There's no bonding there at all. And I could see Gypsy being incredibly neglectful and possibly abusive in the future. Now, has that happened? I don't know. This is just my opinion. This is what I feel from what I've seen. But it looks very dangerous. And will the jury believe what they've seen on a reality TV show? It's quite possible. I hope to God that doesn't happen. I hope, if anything, maybe Raina can take care of the child. We can. That's supposedly what it is right now. I would hope more than not that that's what's going on, because, like I said, Ken seems to be really good with the baby. Raina, I don't know. They're all, in my opinion, not fact. I feel like they're all liars, and they're all covering up for Gypsy, and they need to stop that. Gypsy needs to go back where she belongs and away from harming anybody else. And I just, more and more, when I think about it, more and more I feel like she is doing it again, setting people up in her life again, setting each and every person up in her life, so that if one person falters or says something she doesn't like, she can screw them over. she has the perfect attack, and it's all there on reality TV. Very disturbing. But this is what somebody with her tendencies, the psychopathy tendencies, this is the kind of things that they would do. Again, not diagnosing, just giving my opinion. But yeah, it's really disturbing. And again, just worry about that little baby. Hopefully that baby's okay and will stay okay and will be with people who can care for her properly and love her and take care of her. Because Gypsy, in my opinion, is not able to do that. And she will do nothing but, in my opinion, bring harm to that child. Anyway, that's all I got to say.